Welcome to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Noethling. You are about to discover impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you, so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Be sure you visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com. While you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now tune in, get ready, and enjoy the journey of emerging as a leader of exception in the 21st century.
Welcome, everyone, to the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast. I'm your host, Vicki Noethling, coming to you from Roswell, Georgia. The goal of this podcast is to bring topics and guests that will empower you to become that confident leader and take your business and your life to the next level. Today, I am very excited to talk with Randy Adkins, a fellow Toastmaster. Randy's is a low country native of South Carolina, one of my favorite places, who creatively weaves his experiences as a corporate consultant, ordained minister, community leader, and distinguished Toastmaster into a tapestry inspiring observers to integrate spiritual growth principles into everyday life. Randy has a passion to create lasting change in others' lives through writing, teaching, and speaking. He is an altruistic leader, organizational visionary, captivating speaker, and respected advisor with a mission to inspire individuals to be leaders, change agents, and go-getters. Today, we're going to talk about something that I always love to talk about, and that is embracing vision for your life. Please join me in welcoming my guest, Randy Adkins. Randy, so excited to have you on the show.
Vicki, it is great to be on the show and to really have some conversation about vision and about our leadership and how that all comes together. I think it's an important piece of our lives and something that we can integrate in a lot that we do. So I'm ready.
Absolutely. We have two easy questions that we always start the podcast with. And that is, first, I gave a little bit of away, but South Carolina is a bigger place, not the largest state, but it does have more than one city. So where do you call home? Where do you live?
Charleston, South Carolina is home.
One of my best friend, she and her husband live in Charleston, South Carolina. Love visiting there. She complains about a little bit of little hot there right now, but still she escapes to other parts of the country to get out of that heat.
Yeah, definitely. July, August, stay away. Very hot, humid. However, beautiful beaches.
Yes.
Historic town. It's a destination city, and I want to say it's been ranked number one in some magazine, a couple of places in the United States to come and visit. So definitely a great place to come. And food.
I was going to say great
phenomenal.
Food, great shopping.
Yes,
That's
definitely.
why I love it.
So it is definitely a great place. So we call it home, even though we go throughout the world and travel and do different things. We always come back home and say, man, we still believe it's some of the best food, some of the best beaches, and a lot to do here.
Great people too. Great people. All righty, sir. The second question. I gave just a brief outline of who you are, but we all know that you did not leave high school and start this business. Not who you are today. So tell us briefly about what your journey was like that led you to do what you do today.
I always love to start off with just a conversation of when I was probably about 7 or 8. I had a best friend, and we would go in his backyard and we would just build things. And that means we would take tape, we would take tarp, rope, put it all together, and we build these contraptions, and we would call it Star Wars or we would call it Star Trek, whatever we would call it. But in this imagination world that we would come up with, sometimes we would come up with ideas together and we put them together. Sometimes he would come up with the idea and tell me to put it together. Or at the end, I would come up with the idea and tell him to do it. And I was like, man, I really like this. So I found that these images that would come in our head of things that we wanted to create can become reality. And
Mhm.
it caused me to have, be very a child that was inquisitive, wanted to know
Mhm.
more about this imagination thing that we have here that can make reality real. Sometimes it's through brute force with our hands and doing things,
Yeah.
but in other cases, it's coming up with these great imaginary things that you're thinking about,
Mm.
and they become reality in this world. And then you go through school with that inquisitive mind through reading and math and all of these great things that you go through school about. And I think of all of those formative years being just very inquisitive and thinking about that. And as we moved into college and some other areas of life, you then find out that, oh, well, there are more ways to continue to do this. But by that time, you are in a space where you've kind of learned to conform. Part of life
Mhm.
was told to you that you're supposed to
Yeah.
conform, or otherwise you get in trouble.
Yep.
And I learned more during college that you can have ideas and you can begin to start to question some of those things that you may call social norms, or sometimes it's just the way that you're supposed to act in different spaces. And that's when those types of ideas started to come out and think about. But during the elementary all the way through high school, you're just trying to fit in, and then
Yeah.
you find out that your uniqueness is actually what sets you apart when it comes to work, leadership, and doing more. So that took me on a path to really looking at helping out, doing leadership, sharing information, and moving into a more of a space where I want to live life that is going to be full
Mm.
of joy, full of excitement, full of peace and love. And how do you do that in the midst of all of the great things that may be happening in this world at any moment in time? How do you do that on a consistent basis? And
Yeah.
so that led me to where I have a book called Produce on Purpose, Experience Life Being the Real You, a podcast that says Produce on Purpose. I'm an ordained minister. I do technology for a living. I've done that for over 26 years. And of course, I have a lovely family, my wife of 26 years
Mm.
and three children. And it's just been wonderful, a wonderful journey
Mm.
of really figuring out kind of that inquisitive nature, and it's still there. But I've learned also to utilize creativity and understand that sometimes what's in this head up here can become a reality in this world.
Yeah. That's we could have a whole nother podcast just on all that. Lots of things going in my mind we could talk about there. But we're going to talk about embracing vision for your life. So why does it mean, or what does it mean to be that producer in everyday life? And I think this is important because oftentimes we don't think of ourselves as that person, that producer. We're the follower. We're the, you tell me what to do and I'll do it, but I'm not the innovative, creative person. We don't recognize that we have that in us anymore.
And who told us that?
I
Who told
know,
us
I
that?
know. Honestly, when I teach, the kids, the youth leadership, I say, I just want you to get back to when you were 4 years old. And I tell that to the 30s and 40 and 50-year-olds. What happened, when we get to school and somebody laughs at us or somebody, you know, tells us this is how you do it and you only can do it this way.
Right.
And then we have
And
bosses that say the same dang thing.
I'm reminded of kindergarten and going in full of energy. I had come out of preschool and was like, all right, kindergarten, we're going to do something. And the first thing the teacher tells me is go to that line, sit crisscross applesauce. And you're like, that this is what I'm supposed to do. And everybody's sitting there with their legs crossed. And I'm like, that's my first time really thinking about, wait a minute, you got to conform and do what everyone else is doing. And, I think about becoming a producer. I use an analogy of being an actor and actress. And in the Greek times, what an actor and actress would do is they would put on a mask. That way you knew that they were in character and that they were acting at a particular space. What we often do is we're putting on masks depending on what situation we're in.
Fitting.
We are putting on a mask depending on, I might be at a party over here and I'm going to put on a mask depending on who's there. And I'm going to act in a particular way so
Yeah.
that I can somewhat please them. I think I'm pleasing them in that manner. I might act differently when I'm at work. I might act differently when I'm at home. I might act differently when I'm in an organization that
Yeah.
I'm around different people. I might act different around my family. And a lot of these masks that we put on cause us to be great actors and actresses. And I can say bravo to every one of us because we learn how to conform and how to act out in these situations. The problem that I found with this is that when we are acting in those situations as an actor and actress, we're acting on someone else's script. It is not our script. It wasn't the one that we created. And I think about all of these movies that are created, and usually what we see is the actors and the actresses they're out front. They're the ones on the billboards, they're the ones that are on the interviews, and we're like, yay, great. But the actors and the actresses are still working someone else's script. You say, well, then maybe I'll be the director of my life. You will have greater creative freedom, greater ways to say what shot are you going to do in this movie called Your Life, and you can do different things to say, hey, I want my add some creativity to this. But even the director and the actors and actresses are hired by the producer. And I encourage everyone to be the producer of their lives, because if you are producing your life, and in fact, now I watch Netflix, and Netflix always has these series. It's no longer a movie. You're always
Yeah.
watching this like
Hmm.
series, and you have all of these episodes. Well, many times in our lives, that's what we're doing because life, we transition through different seasons. And so
Yeah.
sometimes your movie that you're making, if you're the producer, you can change into a new series, you can move into a new season and have different things going on. I think back to when we had little children, and now we're on the space where we call ourselves bird launchers, not empty nesters, but we're getting close. We got one more in the house, and we're going to finish launching these birds, and that's a change in our lives.
Yeah.
And that's happening to everyone. And depending on where you are, you have different seasons. And I encourage everyone to be the producer, because the producer, not only do they get usually the biggest pay, but they're the ones that usually came with the script. They brought the resources together. They hired all of the people, and they had a vision of what they are coming and bringing together for their movie. And you can't do it on your own. You can't
Right.
just go out and say, I'm going to make this movie, I'm going to film it, I'm going to act in it, I'm going to do everything. No, you need others to
Yeah.
support you. And that's the same thing we need in life. And as producers, when we are doing that, then we are in control of our narrative. We're in control of the vision. We're in control of the leadership qualities that we need and the skill sets that we need to bring about the vision of our life. And guess what? If we do what we're supposed to do, it's going to help everyone else in the world. You're not taking away from someone because you are being the best that you can be, but you are actually adding to this world when you're doing that.
As you were talking about that, I thought when you talked about the director, I thought, well, the director oftentimes, and even the screenwriter, is told by the producer, looking at big picture, you want to do this, but the audience wants this. And so your script, your direction has to be adjusted so that we can have that blockbuster movie or series, if you will.
Yeah. And it's interesting because the producers are the ones that are very creative in this world, that they are bringing together all of the resources
Mhm.
and making sure that everyone can then buy into the vision of
Yeah.
what they are trying to put out and distribute. because you think about it, it's not something that you just plug into and just follow someone else's, but you're going to be creative in your own life and say, why was I put here? What was I born for? What was the purpose I'm supposed to be putting out into this world? And you're going to have those projects that you're going to put out. And it's going to change lives, because when you watch a movie, it changes you. It changes
Yeah.
how you think about things.
As a producer too, you have to have that courage to dare to be different, to dare to try things that haven't been done before, to fail, and get back up. All of those things. What are some other challenges and opportunities that you might have as the producer for Purpose?
Yeah, when I think about the producers are taking on a large amount of risk. And when we think about some of the things that we were probably taught in school, I remember
Mhm.
being in school, and it was, if you didn't have it perfect, then you got a bad grade.
Yeah.
However, that's not how life actually works.
No.
The more you try things and the more you fail, the more you learn. And
Hmm.
it's interesting because I believe that sometimes the more we do it and the faster we get to learning and understanding something, then you will then see successes, because it's what we do in software. We call it iteration. We
That's right.
iterate over something, and we consistently iterate over it, and we make it better by iterating. And I believe that if we do that same thing in life, and sometimes it's called experiential learning,
Hmm.
that it helps us as producers of our life to understand, hey, this didn't work last time, but I'm going to just try this. And then you keep trying what works and what doesn't work. And what works for you in this area, you keep doing it. You keep doing the thing that works. And the thing that doesn't work, you just push aside. And we have to keep trying. And I believe that that's one of the areas that a producer has to have for their own life. And that's what we all should have, is understand that there is going to be times that things won't work out the way that we want them to initially. However, if we keep moving forward, if we are like the engine that could, we just keep on trying, that eventually you will have more successes as a producer, and you will have the ability to communicate at a greater level.
Hmm.
Sometimes it's our communication of our vision to all of those that we have around us that may be falling short and causing us to have more issues than anything. So you build those skill sets, you build that knowledge, and it becomes an easier route when you can, hey, look, this is the vision, this is what we're trying to accomplish. And sometimes you may not know the whole vision, but you're helping everyone see where you're going.
Yeah. When you talk about that, the vision, but also you mentioned that you did it, it worked, and so you stick with it. I think one of the things that entrepreneurs, when they get in that comfortable seat where it's everything's going good, don't rock the boat, but you don't grow, you don't really scale your business unless you say, okay, everything's cool, but could we, tweak this, change that, even your vision, as long as, I think, if you have your core values stays the same, your vision can change as you grow, as you develop, as the world changes. And if you aren't willing to do that, to be able to change, then I think you won't have the success that you could have. I mean, you could stay successful, but you could be even more successful, be more joyful if you just had that, okay, I'm willing to just not do it right this time. I gotta I gotta rewrite the script a few times here.
It sometimes we back ourselves in the corner, right? When
Yeah.
we get too comfortable. And my encouragement to leaders as well as entrepreneurs is, we have to sometimes push the envelope and say, hey, we're going to try something a little different, because this may be working, but we want to try and push or scale or move forward in a different way. I will share that, for example, my book, Produce on Purpose, Experience Life, Being the Real You, I started writing it during the pandemic, and I thought after a year, I had a full manuscript and I thought I was done. However, when I started reading the book, I was like, oh, wow, this doesn't flow. It's my first book writing. I'm working with my editors and my publisher, and I end up editing the entire book over again, restructuring it, understanding the editing process in a greater way, that I needed to go back to a development edit, not,
Mhm.
what most people believe they understand editing is just a proofreading, but the
Mhm.
proofreading edit is at the very end, and that's putting on the final touches. But there's this whole editing process that
Yeah,
I went through, and what I started with is not what the book ended up being in the end.
often.
It ended
Mhm.
up being something completely different. There are still remnants of what the first manuscript looked like, but it's not the same. And I believe that's the same thing in our lives, is that we sometimes have to push the envelope. And I was not going to allow it to go out until I knew, number one, it flowed. Number one, it had a continuous, push in all these
Mhm.
directions, and that everyone could understand and gain something practical out of all of the work.
Right.
And I believe that's the same thing that we have to do as entrepreneurs and as leaders, is we have to push that envelope to make sure that the vision is coming forward. And what you have at first may not actually be everything that you need, and you just have to go back to doing it
Yeah,
again. And at some point, you do come out of it, you do finish the project, and you keep moving to the next thing that you're supposed to move to.
right. So I wanted to get into some of the more when we talk about embracing our vision for life, to me, it does involve more than just practical business kind of situations here. So I want to talk to for the next couple things more so uh, from the heart kind of thing. So why should we be connected in the body, in our soul, and in our spirit when we're talking about embracing our vision?
So we are I go back to the Bible. It talks about being a tripart being. So when I talk about the body, the soul, and the spirit, that we are composed of that, and that your body is the five senses that we communicate
Mhm.
in this world with. And as you're communicating to this world, you're hearing, seeing, you get all of that input, and you are connecting with this world and having relationships in this world. The soul is where your mind, your will, and your emotions are,
Mhm.
and you're making choices all the time. You're making decisions. You're moving in a direction there, and then you have your spirit. Your spirit is that innate thing that you were actually designed for, and you have a purpose. I love to describe purpose in this way, and it's very simple to think about. You have a general purpose and a specific purpose. Your general purpose is for you to please your creator. Some of us call our creator universe, nature. I call him God. And as I call him God, then in the Bible it says that God is love. So then I express love in all that I do for my general purpose. But then each of us has a specific purpose. That means you were born and uniquely manufactured and designed to do something very
Mhm.
special, that you may have multiple gifts in that you've been born with that you can do. And so that specific gifting that you have, some of us need to understand that when you it's that easy thing that you're able to do, that everyone looks at you and say, oh my gosh, you do that without
Mhm.
actually making it difficult or anything like that. You do it easily. And that's your gifting, that's your purpose. I love to give the example of going in the kitchen. I walk in the kitchen, I see I have a dishwasher, I have an oven, but I need to bake a ham. If I take the ham and put it in the dishwasher, it's just
Not
it
kind of
just
good.
it just doesn't work very well, right?
No.
And so when we are in that situation, sometimes we don't know what our purpose is, and so we're in jobs that don't fit who we are and what we are doing. We are having relationships and around people that don't really fit who and what our purpose is. And if you go back to the design of the dishwasher is designed to wash dishes. And so it's going to be best at washing dishes, not cooking a ham. And when we do what we were born to do, and you get back to who you were born and why you were here, what you have in your unique gifting, then you are going to notice that you're going to have an ease at what you do, have a peace, have a joy. When you wake up in the morning, you know that you're going to operate in that area of your life that allows for you to do that. So then when I think about those things, I want you to think about being that tripart being, understanding your purpose and understanding who you are. Many times we approach this world by allowing all of the external things that are happening in our life, whether it's money, our health, relationships, everything that's around us to affect how we feel and who we are. And you're bringing all that external stuff in from the body to the soul and then to the spirit. Well, my encouragement to everyone is to begin to start with your purpose, begin with your spirit, begin with your heart, begin with who you are, and begin allowing that to inform your soul. And then allow your soul then to inform what you do and how you interact in this world and who you relate to and what you really care about. Because in the end, I believe that many of us are caring too much about some of the things that are external to us when they really don't matter in the end. And if you, to your purpose and what you're about, and when you're able to start to do the inside out work, it changes everything. And it begins to allow for your vision that you have that was put within you. You can then begin allowing that to manifest in this world with all your relationships and everything else that you deal with and that you're having to work around. And there are tools and techniques, of course, and practices and disciplines that we can do on a consistent basis to help us with that. However, that is the idea and that is the goal, how we can get closer to embracing that vision in our lives. Just don't be that dishwasher trying to bake a ham.
I mean, you could have a boiled ham, but the soap suds might not be so great.
Yeah, I don't think it'll taste too good.
No, not so good. So why should we listen to our hearts? I teach leadership in the 21st century, and I say we should lead with our hearts, our hands, our head and our hands. And so I'd love for you to explain why we should listen to our hearts, get to hear your point of view on that.
Listening to our heart goes into this inside out belief and understanding that even in science, they have found that within us, many times they've found this thing they call the gut brain or intuition, and it's a part of our heart and who we are. That's right. The example I love to give in this situation is that we are, if I'm driving down the road and, sometimes I go a little faster than I should, and I see blue lights, immediately before I can recognize what those blue lights, whether they're for me or for someone else, I have this kind of reaction. My body has already reacted before I could even think about what's really going on. Your heart is doing that all the time. Sometimes you're meeting a person and you immediately have a particular reaction or feel, or you are in a situation and you just knew something happened, whether it was good or bad, however you have distinguished the situation, you already have a knowing or a feeling that's there. When we tune into that, and explanation I give is when I was younger, I had about 100 miles away, there was this radio station, and I would use the tuner. So like today, we don't have these little knobs anymore that we tune into the radio. So you probably remember too, that it was no longer, but like today it's digital. But I would just tune it just right so that I could get it. And I felt that I was special because I'm getting this radio station 100 miles away, listening to music, dancing my heart away. But the idea is that we tune into our heart and then tune into that joy, that love, that peace that really resides within us, that wants us to remain in a space where we can listen to that. And I encourage us to be led from have our heart inform our head, because our head can come up with all kinds of things. And our head can oftentimes be very messy and have many thoughts going on at many times. But when we are in a space where we begin to allow our heart to inform our head, because whatever we are thinking about is typically going to become an action in this world. And so at some point, you want to allow your heart to inform your head and then even your hands. And then now you're really doing this inside out work
Yeah.
where you are listening for your heart. You're listening for that connection. You're listening for that purpose of your life to
Mhm.
inform how you move in this world. And you have greater clarity so that when
That's right.
anything comes your way, you're able to filter it very quickly of whether or not does this serve me or
Mhm.
does it not serve me. And I encourage everyone to really think about that. Are you in relationships that serve you or do not serve you? Are
Mhm.
you in jobs that serve you or do not serve you? Or how is it that you're relating to this world? How are
Yeah.
you relating to what's going on in your life at this moment? And when you begin to ask those questions, you can then begin to filter in maybe there's something you need to do to change
Mm.
your skill sets, your knowledge, your communications, or whatever you're doing. Or maybe there's something you may need to start to let go of in your life.
Yeah.
And I believe that when we start to move in that direction, and your heart begins to inform your head, you become clearer. You begin to see things differently in this world, and you begin to produce on that purpose that you were born for. And you begin to share that in this world. You begin to be a light, even when it may seem dark all around you. You become a light in that situation,
Mm.
and you begin to change the atmosphere that's around you. You begin to warm up things that may have been cold because
Mhm.
you are now bringing that to all your situations versus allowing all situations to inform you how you should be.
Right. So good. So this kind of nicely transitions into my next question, which is what is the value that you can find in the seasons of transition? I love that phrase, seasons of transition, that we all will have all our lives, you know. So talk to us about what value we can find in that.
Yeah, the value that we can find in seasons of transition can be huge. They can
Mm.
be game changers. They can be the things that really shift us. I love to explain it this way is midnight. Midnight is not night anymore, and it's not quite day yet. It's in between. And so you're in this place where I may have come out of something that hasn't been the greatest thing in my life. And but I haven't yet seen where I'm going yet. And I'm in this transition place. It allows for us to then search within ourselves and say, what does this really mean? I often tell this, this is a moment in my life where I had a very difficult time is my 19-year-old brother, he was in a fatal car
Mm.
accident, and I had a hard time coming to grips with that. This was a season of transition in my life that would not have expected. You know, you have levels of grief that go on, and it took 6 months later, my mother found a letter on her computer and brought it to our Christmas gathering and read it. And that letter was about me. I have that letter till this day. He wrote about me. I had a lot of conversations with my brother. I had many times where we had very intimate moments. We had times we shared. I mean, I watched when he was my younger brother, so we watched him grow up, and we sometimes even slept in the same bed. And so you think of those things, and you're like, is he going to walk through the door one day?
Mm.
And you're trying to grapple with that. And in many of these cases, you can either draw further away from everyone in this situation, or you can draw closer to who you are and what you are
Right.
meant to be. Out of that situation, what I found, and I'm on the mission and on the path of doing this forevermore, is I never thought that I was getting through to him when I was talking to him. We were having these conversations, but he
Mm.
was saying in his letter all of the things that he was so proud of me and what I had done and what I was doing and this and that. And I didn't know that I was making a difference or an impact. Some of us don't think we're making a difference or an impact because we can't see it with our eyes.
Mhm.
However, I found that I will never stop sharing a message of hope, of joy, of peace, of love to this world, because I never know who is going to be impacted
Who
by
needs
this
to hear it?
message.
Mhm.
And then in that season of transition, in that tough time, and we all will sometimes get to these spaces in our lives where it's going to be tough. It may be a loss of a loved one, loss of a job, loss of something, or it may just be you found out and you figured it out that this world has these social norms that aren't real, and your whole life is destroyed because you're like, these are values that I had, but they're not really the truth.
Right.
We can sometimes call it the dark night of the soul. You might come to a space in your life where you find these things happening, but you can, in the middle of those situations, find a solace, find a grounding, find a foundation. And my encouragement in these spaces is greater prayer, greater meditation, journaling to help in
Yeah.
these situations, and therapists if you need it, a professional therapist, pastor, whomever you feel comfortable with, that will listen and allow for you to talk about and navigate in those times, because the value that comes out of that, you can be a completely different person,
Mhm.
impact this world in a greater way. And it's because you've now had to come to grips or actually confront maybe some things that you have never thought to have to confront or never thought you would. But this journey that we have sometimes puts us on that journey.
Mm.
And those seasons that we have that are transitions, it's okay. And one thing I have as encouragement to anyone is everything changes.
Mhm.
Everything changes in this world. Seasons do change. So if you feel like you're in a tough situation or a down season, the season will change. In fact, if the seasons didn't change, I probably would still have hair today, or I wouldn't have I wouldn't have gray in my beard, right? There. So there's always change.
That's what we always can count on, change. Well, time's
Yes,
flying
yes.
by here. Let's do one more question. And what is the process to be able to get the most out of our life? Embracing that vision, having the flow. What's that process?
The process I would start with is, first of all, some of us are carrying around a lot of patterns, a lot of trauma, and I would equate that to carrying around a lot of garbage in our lives.
Mhm.
And what my encouragement is to start identifying those things so that we can kind of let go of the garbage. Because if you don't let go of the garbage, guess what happens? A bunch of garbage built up comes out stinky, and
Mm.
sometimes that's what's happening in our lives, but we can begin to release those things by letting go, or sometimes we call the word forgiveness. And that opens up the process for you then to move into a space where you have these practices and disciplines. My encouragement is then that you practice and discipline, give yourself time early in the morning where you just sit there and listen for, and what am I supposed to do? What is this day going to look like?
Mm.
And then gratitude. What are you grateful for? What are you thankful for in your life? What is it? And I encourage you to write these things down, because if you write them down into a journal, what you can then do is reflect back on them, and you will see growth in your life. Because remember, when we grow, you will see changes, you will see the vision. And
Mm.
then it moves into intention. So I will encourage everyone to start with those other steps, because some of us want to go directly to intention. However, you don't have enough room to really keep going with the intention that you have that are going on. Get rid of the garbage, get rid of, get into a space where you have to really get rid of those things, and then start more with more intention. Because the goal is for us to live intentionally, to live on purpose, to make sure that we have an intentional aim in our lives. And if we are doing that, then everything begins to change, because you can now have a vision.
Mm.
And there are two obstacles to vision that I talk about all the time. And the first obstacle is you. It's us, me and you. We can be our own obstacle to our vision, or it's other people. And many times the other people is because they don't understand what you are supposed to be doing. It was given to you. It was given to you, and the instructions were provided to you. So then they may not be on board. That's okay. Find someone else that can support you, can listen to you, and not judge where you are. Many times with entrepreneurs and with those who are creative, what happens is we share our vision with someone who doesn't quite understand, and the vision isn't fully baked or fully out there yet. You need people who are going to ask questions, but they're going to not judge you because of it. The vision might seem like it's out there, but you know what? It's the vision that's been given. Can I ask you questions? And then it allows you to have more clarity on where you're going. And I believe that if you begin with those steps of just letting go of that garbage, moving into some practices and disciplines that you do on a daily basis, and then getting to a space where you are intentionally every day waking up with a specific focus to impact this world, to change those that are around you, to bring more joy to this world, more love to this world, more peace to this world, you are then intentionally living from the inside out and no longer from the outside in.
Awesome advice. All right, it is time now for me to share my screen for contact information. If you have enjoyed this conversation with Randy as much as I have, you'll want to get in touch with him, and I'm going to share that information on a slide. But if you're just listening, you know the drill. You should have been taking notes all along, but go quick, grab that paper, pencil, pen, and I will be reading the information for you, but it all will also be on my YouTube channel, Vicki Noethling. So please do subscribe, as well as on my findyourleadershipconfidence.com podcast show notes. All right. The website is randyatkinsjr.com. That's randyatkinsjr.com. Facebook is Randy Atkins Jr. Speaker. And Instagram is Randy Atkins Jr. LinkedIn is Randy-Atkins-PMP, and some numbers and letters and things that, don't worry, just search on Facebook or LinkedIn for Randy Atkins. Twitter is Randy Atkins Jr. and YouTube is at Produce on Purpose. Again, randyatkinsjr.com is that website. I'm going to turn it over to Randy now. He's going to talk to you about his call to action, about his book, and where he spends the most time in social media and resources and other things you can find on that website. So Randy, it's all yours.
Yeah, you can get the book, Randy, you Produce on Purpose, Experience Life Being the Real You, at randyatkinsjr.com. There we have the ebook, paperback, and even Audible. So those who are not wanting to go through that. And additionally, by going to randyatkinsjr.com, you can also get the podcast, which is Produce on Purpose. Usually on Facebook or Instagram. Feel free to reach out to me there or on LinkedIn. Thank you so much, Vicki.
Well, Randy, it's been a real pleasure talking with you. Such a great subject to talk about. And you made some wonderful points, great advice, great stories. And I do encourage everybody to check out his website and check out his podcast, that Produce on Purpose podcast. So you definitely want to get that to your podcasting list. All right. As always, I remind everyone that life is a journey and it's up to you to enjoy the ride. This is Vicki Noethling signing off.
Thank you for tuning into the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast with Vicki Noethling, where we share impactful lessons that help you grow as an individual, grow your confidence, and find the positive and good within you so you powerfully and authentically become the best version of yourself. Remember to visit our website at www.findyourleadershipconfidence.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Find Your Leadership Confidence podcast.